About a week ago, I was scrolling on my phone and this old clip from this team training session back in about 1920 popped up. And as a current professional footballer, I was mesmerized. I loved how much has changed over the 100 years of science and research and training sessions and all this stuff, but at the same time, how much has stayed the same. So in this video, I'm gonna go decade by decade over the last 100+ years and analyze the training sessions, the drills, and the exercises that I've found. So immediately, we got some jump ropers. I'm guessing using this as a warm-up. I've never been a part of a team that really incorporates jump roping into the warm-up, but the idea of moving your body and getting some high knees is not terrible. Then we have some baton movement for the shoulders, which probably a good mobility exercise. I'm guessing they're weighted. And then the next clip is them using their head to keep the ball up, using their feet to keep the ball up, which is really exactly the same as what we do now. Almost 100 years later, you get in a little circle of 5-6 guys and you just use 1-2 touches to keep the ball up in the air. The one thing I notice is that they use a lot more of their head here. I think for us, majority of the time, it's with our feet. It's the first clip that I found of players actually training with the ball on the ground and playing. It just really does, like just watching this just reminds me so much of just like you're out at the schoolyard, like just playing for fun, no positioning, just get the ball around the goal and swipe at it, kick at it to try to score. I love this one. It's funny. It looks funny, but really it's just a form of plyometrics, honestly. You're just jumping up in the air, trying to clear this string. I mean, I think that if we were to do that today, it'd be kind of a joke thing, like almost stupid. But what's the difference of doing this, jumping over a ball on a string versus jumping onto a box for a box jump? It's still the same concept of working on your explosive vertical jump. That's some slow motion. And the body positioning, it looks a little awkward, a little unathletic, but the same concept of trapping the ball like that is still 100% used today. And the kick looks again, like you can just tell like the technique looks old fashioned. It's almost like it's just kind of like swinging your leg really high, but he's hitting it with the right part of his foot. It looks perfectly fine. It's almost like I can recognize the movement as being old fashioned, and I can't put my finger on why it looks so old fashioned. It's not really that it's stiff. It's just that it's almost, I guess, a little inexperienced. It's like if I were to see someone move like that today, I think that they're not, they haven't been playing football for that long, but it's interesting. It's also funny how different a lot of the people kick the ball and their movements are and how their upper body is, if they're leaning, if they're landing on their shooting foot. And I feel like it's because you're kind of just training based off who's around you. There's no national coverage of TV that people are watching. There's no training manuals for how to kick a ball or how to do whatever. There's no YouTube to how to learn it. So everybody just kind of learns it on their own and develops their own techniques and mannerisms when they kick it. Again, a lot of their training session looks like what would happen at recess or just in the schoolyard. Guys standing around the 18-yard box, balls just being pelted everywhere, guys crossing on the ball, shooting on 2 goalkeepers. It's just like no structure at all. Let's just go out there and do whatever we want to do. And that's usually what happens when there's no structure at recess or you're training with your friends. It's funny how this is the top level at this time, and it looks exactly how it looks like at the very grassroots level now. Next, we have Sheffield Wednesday, 1935. So now we're looking about 90 years from today. Right off the bat, it looks more professional already. A 10-year jump. The uniforms look a little bit more polished. I guess the video quality is getting a little bit better, but you have some huge shin guards, but everybody's dressed the same. It definitely looks way more professional than it was before. Now this I love, this little idea, just kicking the ball against the wall. It's interesting. The technique is just completely toes down with the laces. It's not really like leaning to the side and hitting more of like a long ball or driven ball technique. And it's not with the inside of the foot. It's just straight up and down, straight with the laces. But using the wall as your friend and just hitting the ball back and forth against the wall is something that I preach about doing all the time. And I still think is one of the best drills you can do to improve your touch, improve your passing. The heading technique is really funny too, of jumping straight up in the air and just kind of just bounding straight up. There's no coming back and snapping forward, like using your abs at all. There's no off the forehead. It's kind of like just jumping straight up and hitting it with the top of your head almost. The shooting technique, they're doing the same technique that you saw that the guy was passing with the wall. They kind of run up straight up the ball, and they're not really getting their foot wrapped around it or opening up their laces. It's straight up and down, toe down, and just swinging their legs straight through and using the laces, which is very old school. We have Millwall from 1938. I couldn't imagine training in the materials that they're training in. Looks like wool or cotton, just full turtleneck sweater. Some probably heavy pants or shorts, thick shin guards, leather, heavy boots. They get really soggy in the rain. I just couldn't imagine how heavy you'd feel. I complain about pants sometimes now. This is really cool to see. It's like a soccer tennis. And that's a game that I play pretty much, weekly, if not every other day now. It's cool that this is happening in 1938. You're seeing a video of it. And it's still something that teams all around the world consistently add to their training regimen. Now we're making a big jump. Arsenal FC in training from 1950. Right off the bat, the technique looks way better. I feel like their movements, their body language just looks way more confident with the ball. Heading the ball, I can tell like these players would be better. Still, it's not great, but it looks a little bit sharper. I wonder what that is. It looks like a game ready. It looks exactly like a game ready. I have no idea what it's doing. I don't know if it's heating or icing. It's probably heating because he's going to massage it after. Building the football boots. Hammer and nail. The technology that is found in football boots now compared to 1950 is insane. To think about how light a pair of Vapors are or Adidas Crazy Fast boots are now, how they just weigh like grams compared to what you're seeing with hammering nails into these boots, heavy leather, metal in there. Those things probably weighed a couple pounds. And we have the English national team training for the World Cup in 1954. It looks way more professional. The field looks better quality. They're still not 100% matching, but it looks less like a schoolyard pickup session and looks way more like an organized team training session. Again, in the line, doing very classic, almost like jumping jack, high knees type things. And it's still stuff that we do in warm-ups, high knees, butt kickers, squats, it's all the same. But just the way they're in the lines like that, stationary, looks way more old school than us. Some relay races. We do relay races in this aspect. We incorporate a little bit more of the ball usually, but we do stuff like this in our warm-ups all the time. There's little movements and mannerisms that make it seem such a lower level than what we're used to seeing now. But it's kind of like when you take the touch and it's not out in front of you where you want it. So you have to back up a little bit and then go back up to kick the ball. Or it's like with your hands just being out like this all the time, running around. Those mannerisms to me just seem way more amateurish than what you're used to seeing now with guys in the Prem, and that just looks so natural out there with the ball. Just to see how far science and nutrition and the workouts and everything has come to now make much more athletic, more technical, smarter players. I don't want to make it seem like I'm completely saying these guys are terrible or unathletic. They definitely are less than today, but these guys were the best in England in 1954. They still were athletic. They still had good technique. They still were able to play. Moving into the 60s now. I think immediately too, just noticing some of the passing patterns. This is the first time that you're starting to see this. At least I've seen it in the videos. You would have some typical give and goes or some 3-man weave type stuff like that in the old videos, but this is the first time you're seeing movements, runs, 3rd-man runs, passing the ball, turning out, receiving on the go. Again, probably more tactically based training. You guys running on the 2 lines around the field with some headers jumping up. We do the same thing, running, jumping, working on that as a form of warming up. This is really cool to see the football boots. You can start to see some Adidas boots back there, all black. You just get the iconic 3 white stripes, but they're still hammer nail building the boots. And you can see just how many nails or pins are in there as well. But it already looks a lot leaner, slimmer, way, way lighter than you had in like the 40s or 50s. You're only seeing clips, but it does look like the players are getting a little bit more athletic, but the technique you use to kick still screams old school for me. Now again, the English national team, 1970. Some agility, fitness, where you're running not at just a constant speed or constant direction, but they're incorporating a lot of cuts and turns. But my stereotype of football in this time is a lot of running. It's almost like you're doing way more without the ball than with the ball. I don't know if that's 100% true, and it's definitely not true for every single team out there. But that's just like the perception that I have of football in this day and age. We have, it looks like 2 games going on at once. It looks like, I don't know if it's 11v11 or 5v5 or something, but the technique looks better. These players are obviously very, very fit. You can just tell that all these guys could probably run for days. But obviously the fast twitch, explosion, speed is probably not where it's at today. But it was a different game, and the game was played very differently. And I love this documentary about Ajax, and this is from in 1991 to 1997. But Ajax had this huge influence about the shift in culture and training methods and training ideology during this time and even before this time. Even stuff like this, if you watch this passing pattern, the dynamic movements, how sharp it is. I mean, that's quality. Even hearing these little moves like this with the ball, it's sharp. And I'm not saying that back in the 70s or 60s players couldn't do this, but I think there is a big emphasis now in the 90s working on those techniques, working on moves, and really being sharper with the ball, faster with the ball. That's what really sticks out to me in this footage, is just how much faster the ball is moved in these clips, in these training sessions. I have England training for the FIFA 2010 World Cup. A lot of the reason why the ball starts to move faster and faster as well is the quality of the pitch. Not only is there this emphasis to train with the ball more, get the ball on the floor more, and not just kick it up in the air, but there's also this movement of getting better and better fields where you can play on the ground. Back in the 1920s, you really couldn't play on the ground that fast because the ball's bobbling around so much because of the pitches compared to the fields here. This is where we start to get into training sessions that look exactly the same as the training sessions today. Maybe some tiny, tiny differences, but the differences might just be from team to team or player to player or coach to coach. The same aspects, speed ladder, dynamic warm-ups with the ball, getting touches in is the exact same as today. The only difference that you can really see is the quality of the film's a little bit lower, being it's in 2010, and some of the clothes looks a little outdated. A lot of the shoes, the boots look a little bit outdated compared to today. And obviously you recognize the players and understand that these aren't players that are still playing right now. Now we have England team training from 2012. Now you're starting to see some players that you still see playing today, Kyle Walker, James Milner, and probably seeing a lot more familiar faces. And again, there's not much that I can really talk about in these training sessions. The only thing that stands out as being different is the clothes. The shorts are a little bit longer now, a little bit more baggy. The drills, the pitch, the movements, the exercises, it's all the same pretty much now. I think there's a big shift, and probably around right now, where you start to see a lot of sports science coming into the game, and players are looking faster, bigger, stronger, more athletic than ever. They still have the fitness, they still have the tactical IQ, but really it's the speed and the change of direction and how dynamic every single player looks is the big difference really to me. And I think in the shift in the 2000s, in the 2010s to now. I honestly have no idea how this video is going to do. I just thought it was really, really interesting, and I love seeing how the game changed and evolved throughout the decades. And I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. But if you did, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, guys, peace.